What's going on, folks? Ted from Nerd Immersion here, and a happy belated Thanksgiving, or, welcome to Black Friday and the shopping craze that's out there. As a reminder, I did put out a short video as well as a list in the community post and a variety of social medias of the crazy deals that are happening on Amazon for Dungeons and Dragons physical books. Although many of you have brought it up, it does appear to only be in the American Amazon. So sorry, folks that are outside of the US. Also, 99.9, we are under 100 subscribers away from hitting 100K right now, and that is absolutely nonsense to me. I can't believe how much the channel has just recently grown in like the past week. We might hit that 100K by PAX Unplugged next week, which would just be wild. Anyway, we're continuing with our Dragonlance campaign coverage here with the Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. This time we're going to be talking about the new feats in the game, as there are several. I believe it comes out to about 9 feats, which is nice to see. I love having more access to feats, and I also am very happy that it appears 1D&D in the future of the game is embracing feats as a whole, which is pretty awesome. So 2 of them, or I guess 8 of them, rather, are tied to, or they're sort of in like, what do you want to call them, feat trees? I like calling them feat chains, personally, or feat tree. I think I like feat trees better, where you have to take one and then that gives you a branching option. So, but with, you know what, it's easier if I just jump in and explain it. So let's go ahead and head over to D&D Beyond. So, first up on this list is Divinely Favored. This is the one sort of standalone feat that doesn't have any subsequent choices. It is a prerequisite of level 4, and then you'll notice it also has the prerequisite here of Dragonlance Campaign. All of the feats in this book have the prerequisite Dragonlance campaign. Now, it's your game. You can do whatever you like as the DM or as a player asking your DM. You can obviously break that rule and just tack these feats in as options for everybody. I did think it was interesting that things like Strixhaven, that had very Strixhaven-centric feats, like the Strixhaven backgrounds, for instance, those did not have the prerequisite Strixhaven campaign. Now, perhaps had they had this mindset, then they might have included that as a prerequisite, because some of them seem, Strixhaven gives you a lot of stuff for the backgrounds, and at least for those feats. And I had thought initially to myself, perhaps these are just so overpowered that they're going to limit them to the Dragonlance campaign. And the reason I bring that up is because we already talked about in the backgrounds video the concept of the extra bonus feat at 4th level that the Dragonlance campaign provides. So it's like, okay, well, maybe it's kind of following in that vein. The Dragonlance feats are too powerful to be allowed out into the base game, so they limit them to the Dragonlance campaign specifically. I don't really feel that way. Maybe I'm off base. You guys let me know what you think in the comments, and we'll go through them and you can decide. All right, so Divinely Favored. You learn a cantrip of your choice from the Cleric spell list, and one first-level spell based on your alignment. We'll talk about the table below in a second. And you also learn the Augury spell. Now, this I don't think is too overpowered. You look at Magic Initiate, and it's 2 cantrips and a first-level spell. This is 1 cantrip and 2 first-level spells, but one of them you're limited in the decision to just being Augury. And then the other things are hard limited by your alignment. And perhaps that's the reason the prerequisite of Dragonlance campaign is chosen, because some of the lore and the various things of these do seem very specific to Dragonlance, right? If they're tied to a specific phase of the Dragonlance moons, they don't really exist outside of the world of Dragonlance, so I could get that. Also, alignment, as I've talked about before, is kind of basically not a thing in 5th edition. There are a couple, it exists, I think, purely because alignment is a thing you expect to exist in Dungeons and Dragons, because it always has been there. And I think that's honestly why it still exists, outside of some stuff in like the Dungeon Master's Guide with magic items that are like, hey, you have to be this attunement or this alignment to attune to it, kind of a thing. And I do feel like it was a holdover from previous editions, because back in the day, alignment hard limited you in things you could do. For example, there were certain spells you just couldn't cast. If the spell was flagged as being an evil spell and you were a good character, you could not cast that spell. things like that. There was real fundamental impacts to the way you played based on your alignment. Now it just kind of is whatever. Or maybe they're looking to change that into 1D&D and they're workshopping it here. So anyway, if you are evil, you get a warlock spell, first level warlock spell. Good, a first level cleric spell, and neutral, a first level druid spell. You get that spell, and augury, you can cast both of those spells once a day without expending a spell slot, and you can also cast them with spells you have of the appropriate level. You choose intelligence, wisdom, or charisma for this, and it also lets you use a holy symbol as your spellcasting focus for any spells that you cast using the ability that you chose for this, right? Whether if you choose intelligence, you can use a holy symbol to cast any intelligence-based spells. And I think this is pretty nice. There's some pretty good options for first level spells. You've got a lot of cross-pollination between druid and cleric on certain spells, but there are some standouts that you might not have elsewhere, right? Shield of Faith is a solid first level spell. Guiding Bolt. Warlock's got things like Hex, some pretty good options there as well. I don't love Augury as a spell personally, and I definitely wouldn't go out of my way to cast it 9 times out of 10. But if I did have a free Augury once a day, I would probably cast Augury every day. So it adds a little bit of flexibility there, and you do still get the Cleric Cantrip. But I still don't think this is, like, in the so overpowered you need to hard lock it behind the campaign setting. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Next up is the Initiate of High Sorcery feat, and this sort of kicks off the first of the feat trees, and this is the one obviously tied to magic. The other one's tied to the sword. So, prerequisite, Dragonlance campaign, sorcerer or wizard class, or mage of high sorcery background. So again, if you are a sorcerer or wizard, regardless of your background, you can access this. Or if you're any other class out there with the mage of high sorcery background, you can take this feat. So you could be a barbarian with the mage of high sorcery background and then get initiate of high sorcery. It says choose one of the 3 moons of Kryn to influence your magic. Nuitari, Lunitari, or Solinari, those are the 3 moons. It says you learn 1 cantrip of your choice from the wizard spell list and 2 first level spells based on this specific list for each one. And then it's going to follow a similar aspect to what we just talked about. You can cast the first level spells without a spell slot, or cast them with spell slots if you have them. So Nuitari here gets you 2 spells from the list of Dissonant Whispers, False Life, Hex, or Ray of Sickness. Lunitari is 2 from Color Spray, Disguise Self, Featherfall, and Longstrider. Solinari is 2 from Comprehend Languages, Detect Evil and Good, Protection from Evil and Good, and Shield. I really like Solinari because it gets you access to Shield, and that would give you a freebie Shield once a day. And again, in a similar aspect to... Now, Shield is likely something you will end up casting multiple times, potentially, depending on the combat scenarios you find yourself in. But having a freebie is something that's pretty awesome. Again, in a way like Augury, like I said, I would cast it probably once a day because it was free. Some of the other ones I think kind of fall flat. I do like that Nuitari gets you access to Dissonant Whispers as a fairly limited spell list that gets that. It also gets you Hex. Again, a freebie. Again, you get 2 of these, so you could take, say, Dissonant Whispers and Hex. And having a freebie Hex once a day is also nice. Lunitari, I mean, I don't know. Disguise Self and Featherfall, maybe, right? Both things that are good to have. You can have them free. Again, you can use them with spell slots, and you choose the ability score when you get this. Now, we did actually get these feats in a Unearthed Arcana. I think they appeared originally in the Heroes of Kryn Unearthed Arcana, and then they did appear in the Heroes of Kryn Revisited. I forgot to touch on Divinely Favored previously. Divinely Favored used to not have a limit to the level. It used to just be available at first level. And it was basically the same thing, right? You got the cantrip of your choice, the first level spell, and basically all they did for this, Divinely Favored, is make it limited to 4th level. Initiative High Sorcery, same thing pretty much. Get a first level spell, two first level spells from the list and a wizard cantrip of your choice. and it does look like the spells basically remained unchanged when they made the transition to the final product. Following up with that, you can see we have our adepts of the 3 different robes. Adept of the black robes, again, they're all going to have this ambitious magic feature, which is learn a second level spell of your choice, and it's going to have a limitation to one of 2 schools. And yet, again, in the similar vein here, you can cast that spell once a day without expending a spell slot, and then you can use it with any spell slots you have. So we'll just, and it uses the same spellcasting ability that you chose in Initiative High Sorcery. So I'll just talk about when we move forward past this one, what the 2 schools of magic you're limited to, and then they all have a unique feature. Adept of the Black Robes has Life Channel. When a creature you can see within 60 feet of you fails a saving throw against a spell that deals damage that you cast, you can expend a number of hit dice equal to the level of the spell. Roll the expended hit dice and add them together. The damage that creature takes is increased by an amount equal to that total. I really like this ability a lot. I said this before. I like hit dice as a currency in the game to do other funky things with. I also appreciate that this could be a really fun way to do something wonky by having like the Initiative High Sorcery or the Mage of High Sorcery background on a Barbarian, and then at 4th level take Initiative High Sorcery, or sorry, Adept of the Black Robes, because you could, in theory, even if you only had limited to the 1st level spells or the 2nd level spell from these abilities, you could use your Barbarian hit dice to jack up the damage of that low level spell if you were, limited, you were not going to rage, or you were out of rages for the day. But it also just really incentivizes multi-classing or just strategic planning in your class, because being a class that has a higher hit die allows this to be stronger, right? It's not going to be less useful on something like, it'll be useful again, I guess, regardless, on a sorcerer or a wizard with a d6 hit die. But if you're, say, a paladin with a d10 hit die or a barbarian with a d12, the damage you can increase by this is pretty substantial. Add up to the red robes. The 2 spell choices for this are Illusion and Transmutation, and their ability is Magical Balance. When you make an attack roll or an ability check or roll a 9 or lower on the d20, you can treat the roll as a 10. You can do this a proficiency bonus times per long rest. And Adept of the White Robes, your options are Abjuration or Divination for your magic, and then Protective Ward. When you are a creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to expend a spell slot and weave protective magic around the target. Roll a number of d6s equal to the level of the spell slot expended, and reduce the damage the target takes by the total rolled on these dice, plus your spellcasting ability modifier. Now, these again were all originally presented here in the Heroes of Krynn Revisited, and I believe they pretty much maintained exactly the same. Adept of the Black Robes looks to be the same, red robes the same, and white robes looks to also be the same. So there you go. All right, moving on to the Squire of Salamnia. This is sort of the, if you're not going the magey route, you're going to go the more martial route. So prerequisite Dragonlance campaign, fighter or paladin class, or the Knight of Salamnia background. Mounting or dismounting costs you only 5 feet of movement. For those of you who don't know, mounting or dismounting in the game technically costs you half of your movement unless you have an ability like this, and it gets you Precise Strike. Once per turn, when you make an attack roll against a creature, you can cause that attack roll to have advantage. If it hits, roll a d8 and add the number rolled as bonus to the attack's damage roll. You can use this benefit a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, but a use is only expended if the attack hits. You can regain all expended uses. You regain all expended uses when you finish a long rest. So this is fantastic. This would be another awesome option. Let's say if you're playing a rogue and you took the Knight of Salamnia background and then got this for free, because this is another way for you to self-initiate sneak attack by granting yourself advantage. So again, make a weapon attack against that creature, trigger advantage, therefore allowing you to have sneak attack, plus getting an extra d8 on the damage added to that damage roll. That's proficiency bonus times per long rest. And you get the nice benefit of not expending the feature if you miss. So I really, really like that. Now, a lot of people were upset because they did change these pretty significantly because they used to basically give you initially superiority dice as similar to a fighter, which people were really excited about these feats because they could allow you to take the Battlemaster feat as well, or Battlemaster subclass, and basically just chain up an insane amount of superiority dice. But I think a lot of that was also with the exception that you'd be able to do that outside of Dragonlance, and then again, they hard limited them to the Dragonlance campaign. So, um, basically, that's going to be the big shift is any of the maneuvers and superiority dice concept were all removed, and they were basically just given a similar sounding ability. Now, as far as Dragonlance campaign that we talked about limiting things for power purposes, I do feel like Squire of Salamnia is pretty substantial. I think was there anything else for Squire of Salamnia? No. I think that's pretty powerful, the ability to self-initiate advantage, proficiency bonus times per long rest, and it gets extra damage, and it doesn't get expended if you miss. It's pretty solid. And then we have 3 Knight feats. We have Knight of the Crown, Rose, and Sword, and they are basically continuing on that, right? You're going to get an ability score increase with this. For Crown, it's Strength, Dex, or Con, and you get Commanding Rally. As a bonus action, command an ally within 30 feet to make an attack. If they can see or hear you, they immediately make 1 weapon attack as a reaction. If that attack hits, the ally can roll a d8, add the number, roll to the damage. You can use this bonus action a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus and get them back on a long rest. So this one, even if the ally misses, it's still expended and they do get the extra damage. Knight of the Rose gets you an increase to either Con, Wisdom, or Charisma. And as a bonus action, you can encourage 1 creature you can see within 30 feet of yourself. You can choose yourself with this feature as well. That target gets temporary hit points equal to a d8 plus your proficiency bonus plus the ability score modifier you increased with this feat. You can use this bonus action proficiency bonus times per long rest. A nice little bit of survivability. It's also a bonus action to initiate all of these, which is kind of nice, or at least the first 2. This I really like too, because this could be a good way to get yourself some tanking ability when you might not normally have it. And then Knight of the Sword gets you Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma by 1. And then once per turn, when you hit a creature with a weapon attack roll, you can attempt to frighten them. They make a Wisdom saving throw equal to 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus whatever you increased ability score from this feat. On a failed save, they are frightened until the end of your next turn. On a successful save, they have disadvantage on the next attack roll they make before the end of their next turn. And this is proficiency bonus times per long rest, and you get them all back again on a long rest. So I like this one too because I like it has a feature on a failed save as well as something still happens to them if they succeed. So I do think these are all really strong and I like them a lot. I think I might like the mage ones a little bit better. I think I really, really like the Adept of the Black Rose with using the hit dice. But like I said, I also like these because with a little clever planning and working around and kind of breaking outside of the traditional mold that's clearly designed for these backgrounds and feats, you can get some really interesting build craft going, and I really appreciate that. So there you go, folks. That is the new feats from Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen. Next up after this, we'll talk about the magic items. There's also some mundane items that might get their own video, and then following that, we'll probably cover the monsters. And then I'll do it for more of the traditional coverage of this. We'll also be talking about the board game at some point in the future. But I'm going to bring it with me, and we might look to try to play it at PAX Unplugged. So thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so. I will see you all next time.